Alright, so I'm going to do a video here and kind of go over my pedal board and a few things that I've recently acquired. Depending on how you found your way here, this was kind of intended for just a couple specific people that asked, but you know, feel free to have a look and a listen. Starting here, this is my amp. It's a Black Star HT20, one of the first versions of it. And then I've got a TC electronic G major 2 in the effects loop. It's just for all my time and, you know, spacey whirly stuff. Right now it's just doing a little bit of reverb and a little bit of delay just to got everything turned down pretty low right now because I'm in an apartment. But that's my clean sound, give or take. And then down here, there's my pedal board, and that's my dog Bonnie. And she's not super in love with this, but she loves to sniff the pedals. So I'll start by going over kind of the signal chain here. It starts at the Wampler Ego compressor right there. And then I use some cabling to run over here to the Morley wah. Just kind of cabling over and back because I'm a left foot wah kind of guy. And then it all shoots over here to the Wampler Clarksdale. That is a visual sound angry fuzz, which I'm kind of just using it for its Octavia sort of thing. And then there's a little brown dog. Watch out. Watch out. Next you got the Tumnus, which is Wampler's kind of clone. Vertex Dynamic Distortion, which I'm sort of using as a, you know, a fizzy fuzz. And then the Visual Sound Open Road, which is kind of a low to medium gain, relatively flat EQ overdrive. I sort of use it as to sort of fake, you know, like a cranked low gain amp kind of sound. That goes into the EQ, which is just basically serving as a volume boost. Just not even a big one, obviously, there. Then up to the little Korg mini pitch black. And then into the Hardwire, what is that, a TR7? Yeah. That's kind of a multi, it does tremolo and a univibe and a rotary. And I have a couple other odd things. I mostly use it for the univibe. Yeah, let me kind of give you the rundown of what I'm doing and why. For context, this is a rig I use for a cover band that kind of plays around town here. So I probably have a little more than everybody would need, or than most people would need. I got the channel switch for the amp here. So anyways, the compressor, I'm not doing like a super squash with that. The biggest reason I have that there is because this little guy, my right hand, probably my biggest weakness, and it sort of kind of offsets. Sometimes when I really get going and kind of get spacing off, I forget to be actively dynamic, and it kind of helps offset that a little bit. Clarksdale, it's just basically a kind of juiced up, tweaked out tube screamer. Does that kind of mid hump, sort of low gain overdrive. I don't use it by itself that often. It's usually used to push something else harder, like sometimes the dirty channel on the amp. this is kind of serving as like a sort of, just sort of a low gain crunch. Honestly, I kind of treat this one more almost doing the same job as a cranked amp. I think I said that at the beginning. And I stack at different times almost any of these other ones into it. Like the Tube Screamer into it. Use some good stuff. Kick on the compressor and that kind of thing there. You know, Tumnus, it's what it is. It's a Klon. I could go over a bunch of technical stuff with it, but you know, to my ear, it's kind of a sort of higher fidelity Tube Screamer kind of overdrive. It's just a little cleaner, a little crisper, maybe a little brighter. I feel like it stacks into the dirt channel on the amp really well. Sometimes I'll actually do the overdrive and the EQ, which when I'm on the clean channel, I'm just using it as a volume boost, but sometimes just to goose the front end a little harder yet. Some shit like that. You got kind of the Octavia effect here, which, again, I mean, I'm not trying to explain what any one of these individually is. Like, if you don't know what an Octavia is, there's tons of videos and so forth if you want to find out. But it goes into other dirt kind of nicely, gives you that. And the dynamic distortion is kind of a, they describe it as like a Tube Screamer plus a fuzz face kind of amalgamated. I suppose that's as fair as anything if you want to describe it. I just use it for a fizzy fuzz. There are a couple others that I actually like the sound of better. I mean, I've got a couple fuzz faces, and I like all of them better fundamentally, but they don't sit well in a mix, and they don't play well with a big obnoxious pedal board like this. So I go with that. It's kind of a compromise, but it sounds good. I mean, it sounds good, but you know, all other things being equal, if I had $1 gazillion and was, you know, playing on stages that were always big enough, I do like the Eric Johnson shit where I had a whole separate amp just to facilitate the fuzz face sound, but I don't, so that's what I go with. It still gets pretty spitty. Cleans up, you know. A lot of times I'll stack that into this, you know, pop to the neck pickup. We back the tone up a little bit and get the kind of that sort of cream sound. It's kind of throaty and you know, the band I'm in, we do Purple Haze, and so I use that as kind of the I like it. It's spitty and nasty, and then when I'm just using dirt from the floor here, you know, the EQ then just serves as like a solo boost, I guess. Like, you know, for like in the middle of a song and I need to jump out for a minute or for a solo or whatever, you know, I'm just gonna. Pardon me. Tuner, pretty self-explanatory. I know a lot of people love to put the tuner first, and all the people that do that for the reason of giving the tuner the cleanest signal, I'm gonna argue with them one little bit on that. But I put it after all my gain staging for kind of pragmatic reasons, because you know, you're playing in some bar and you're next to a window that it's already echoey and wonky anyways, with a couple freaking little plug-in neon lights hanging up, and you're probably plugged into the same circuit as them. If you have to stop, like for a break or whatever it might be, you know, having it after all the gain staging means that when you walk away, it makes a good mute that just sort of. Let me turn a bunch of them on just to really get the noise floor going. Like here, I've got the volume rolled back on my guitar, but so now you're cutting out all the hiss and everything else, and that's at an apartment level. You know, when I've got it cranked for an actual gig, it's a lot louder than that. You know. Sort of univibe. Got it set pretty mild. I find even times where it's appropriate in small, echoey, next to a window with a bunch of noise places, something like a univibe. Too little is better than too much, because too much just turns into a wash of mud real fast. And even a lot of the stuff I use it for, if I were noodling by myself, I'd probably turn the fuzz on, or the dynamic distortion. But in a mix, I might go with a little less crud. Some shit like that, where, you know, I might want to use something. I can play it all wrong too. That's always good. But sometimes, I guess, and this is part of why I like to have so many options, is because sometimes you just gotta listen in the room you're in, like, and sort of feel out how it's fitting in the mix. I really love a lot of raunchy, nasty fuzz. That's like one of my favorite things in the world. But there's a lot of situations when you got another guitar player and a bass and drums going, or like keys and bass and drums or whatever. All of that saturation and all of that clipping and shit will cause you to just kind of disappear from the mix, and that's a bad deal. And I got the Tech 21 MIDI mouse there is just lets me flip through the patches on the TC unit in the rack. And again, you know, a lot of those are actually set up for something fairly specific. So what do I got here? All right, the next one up. That's literally, yeah. I don't know if I can get the camera to look up there at that for a second. I don't know if you can even see. I don't know if you'll be able to even see the display. I feel like you probably can't make that out. Maybe, I don't know. The name of the patch is Low Octave, and basically I use that for one song. It's is exactly what it sounds like. It's just like a monophonic low octave, and I use it for this, you know, Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult. That little bend, right? You know, it happens right at the beginning and right at the end. It's like. Sounds a bit better than that in context, but and I think the next one is probably a harmonizer too. Yeah, that's a like a chord harmony that I use for White Room. It's like. There, I'm just literally playing one note. But to my ear, that always sounded more like what the intro sounds like than just trying to play the chord. Just trying to. What else have I got in there? I got see, I got kind of a. The TC unit has a 3-band EQ in it that you can tweak, and it's parametric. You can change the frequency and the width of like the Q width. And I've got a few patches where I kind of jiggery pokeryed it up to sort of fake a brighter kind of Fendery sort of sound. These Black Stars, like topologically, are very similar to Marshalls. And so I got kind of a. Now you get the idea. I don't know, anything else of note? Jazz chorus. I guess I do have a super squashed compressor set up in the TC unit, but that's of course through the effects loop, so the way it kind of reacts is a lot different than having it, you know, it's basically the last thing in the signal chain versus my one on the floor, which is the first thing. And I'm going to say at living room appropriate levels, a lot of these probably don't even sound that different, especially through the camera. I'm not micing the amp directly. I'm just using the mic right on the camera, but I just thought I'd give it an idea. But one of the people I was making this for was particularly interested in this dynamic distortion, and I already kind of think I already kind of made the point, but just you know, it kind of fills, for me, it kind of fills the same role that a fuzz would fill, but it sits better in a mix. It plays well with, you know, big long signal chains. You know, this isn't really meant to be like a technical specs kind of explanation, but you know, old school like transistor fuzzes, they tend to like to see the pickups directly, like, you know, like guitar to cable, basically straight into fuzz. You put a bunch of buffers and crap in front of them, and they start to act weird. And not give you that kind of spitty, fuzzy thing that people like them for. Or I guess some people hate them for it. I said it stacks really. I really like the way it stacks with this open road. I seriously doubt the camera's really catching this, but it's really, it does that bloom thing that a fuzz does. That like sucking air kind of sort of thing. That you almost feel it more than you hear it. So yeah, that's basically the gist of it. You know, it's probably a little overkill, but I'm kind of set up to do a little bit of anything at any time. The Morley Wise, you know, that's a bad horsey. That's a Steve Vaiwa. I mostly went with that because at the time, which this was like 2003 maybe when I bought this, I think it was the only one Morley had that was both switchless, and it had this contour option where if I hit this little button on the side, it brings these other controls into play, where I can turn this knob and get it changes the sweep of the wah. Usually, if I use that, I end up turning it way down for like that was probably too far down. Shit like that, electric funeral. But then when it's just got the normal bad horsey contour or the bad horsey sweep, you know, the range that it would normally have when that little red LED there is off. And I like the switchless because I'm a klutz and sometimes I don't kick the button on like a Crybaby or a Vox. Alright, I'm gonna cut this video short because my dog's jumping on the door like she wants to go out. You know, I hope it was informative. You know, if you got anything out of it, great.